Welcome to We the People, talking all things politics from a patriotic and no-nonsense point of view. Hey everybody, welcome back to We the People. As always, I'm your host, Skylar the Patriot. And on this week's show, we're going to be talking about the FDA and the federal government's little whoopsie. And by little, it's actually quite big, guys, so take note. The information that they just let out regarding their plans for forced vaccine mandates, how the Biden administration has now completely changed their minds on the entire idea of forced vaccines. And we're then going to be taking a dive into a little bit of the monetary conflict of interest that the FDA has so very eagerly, keynote, eagerly, gotten themselves into. So you can hear about all those things on this week's program. And as always, I thank you for listening. I thank you for subscribing and all of your support for our organization and this show. If you're looking to support us, you can do so at the link right here at the bottom of the screen or in the description. That's theunitedstatespatriotsociety.com/contribute. That's theunitedstatespatriotsociety.com/contribute. Again, I thank you guys enough for all of your support. So as always, another great and information-packed episode of We the People coming your way, guys. So stick around and let's get after it. Remember the administration that had once said that they would never even consider mandating vaccines? That's right, so do I. It doesn't feel that long ago that that was their stance. And I'll quote right now from Joe Biden's lying lips in 2020. He said, "No, I do not think that it should be mandatory. I would never even consider to demand that it would be mandatory," end quote. Well, America, as you know, it's completely gone right out the window, and now it's getting even worse. In an undercover interview from Project Veritas, We the People now have the video proof that our government and the FDA are planning to mandate the COVID-19 booster shot no matter who you are. They do not care. They could give a damn less about what you think, guys. This is video evidence, video proof of what is in the works going on right now behind the scenes. Words from Christopher Cole, who's an executive officer with the FDA. Proof for you right now. Take a look.
You have to get an annual shot. I mean, it hasn't been formally announced yet because they don't want to rile everyone up.
Is it going to be formally announced?
Yeah, at some point. I mean, it's going to be, and some of it's been talked about publicly, but it has been talked about on like CNN or Fox or MSNBC or anything. But yeah, you'll have to get an annual.
So I want to start off by saying, obviously, what does Christopher Cole mean by not wanting to rile anyone up? I mean, what does the FDA mean by that? And I've said this before, so I won't take too much long on this point, but you need to know this. If the goal of the vaccine is to actually protect the public's health, then wouldn't the public be thanking the government for it? I mean, wouldn't people be voluntarily just lining up to go receive jab 1, jab 2, booster 1, booster 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Because you know it's just not going to stop with 1. Wouldn't that be what the people would want to do? Wouldn't that be the logical thing to do if this vaccine was actually saving lives and that the public wanted it? That would seem just logical. But that's not true. That's not the case. And this is proof that the government knows that this is not the case here and that the public would not want it. It would go against our best interest. That's why he said that the Fed does not want anybody to know about it yet. They don't want them to know that they're going to mandate the booster out of fear of riling people up, out of fear of how the public will respond to, once again, their tyrannical mandates. So this begs the question, what is really going on behind the scenes, folks? What's up with this vaccine? We've been hearing for about 2 years now to just trust the science. I mean, whatever that means anymore, it seems that the science just changes day by day. But maybe the FDA, the NIH, and the Biden White House should start taking their own advice and actually start trusting the real science. We have countless numbers of videos, pictures, and heartbreaking stories of extreme adverse effects from this vaccine. And that's just from shots 1 and 2. That's not even from the booster yet. I pray things don't get worse. But look at those videos, listen to those stories, and then I challenge anyone on the left to tell me that that vaccine should be mandated for anyone. But as much as the left would love to continue to call this a conspiracy theory, these things are actually happening to real people. And sadly for them, they can't even sue the drug companies or the federal government for what they've done to them. So as of now, there is zero path forward for accountability and justice for these victims. And that's a crying shame. Well, the same could very well happen to both you and I. While you may not experience permanent neurological damage, heart failure, brain bleeds, miscarriages, or myocarditis, you will have a weakened immune system from this vaccine if you choose to get it. That's a scientific fact. And, as Dr. Robert Malone, the creator of the mRNA technology that is found in these vaccines, and other health professionals from across the world, they've been very clear about the fact that continued and frequent COVID-19 vaccinations will, without a doubt, without question, weaken your immune system and eventually result in its failure, your death. That would be why Dr. Malone has told people that they should not receive this vaccine if they are of normal health conditions. And remember the important fact that across all age groups, 98% of people will survive from this vaccine. That's a 98% survivability rate, meaning that people of normal health conditions already have a great immune system. So there would be absolutely no reason to damage it for something that they were going to beat anyway, which is exactly what they would be doing. And that takes me right to my next point. The FDA and the Biden White House are planning to mandate shots 1 and 2, and yes, as well as the booster, on an entire new group of people now. And parents, I'm going to be really frank with you here. This is really going to piss you off. But you need to watch it because your children's lives are about to be put at risk in a very major way. And they're going to do it to them, even if that means going against your will. They do not care what you think. So just a heads up, you're going to want to hang out of your seat for this one. Roll tape.
You guys have been in the news a lot the last couple of days.
Yeah, we're looking at trying to approve. I don't completely agree with the process. They're looking at trying to inoculate kids under 5 years old, between 6 months and 5 years old.
What do you mean you don't agree with the process?
Well, I mean they don't have all the tests aren't there. So I agree with the thing that it is important to inoculate them, but you can't provide the parent as much a surety as you normally want to for all age groups, all designations, and then you have to get approved by specific age groups based on the study.
Do you think it's really an emergency for the toddlers?
Well, they're all approved under an emergency, just because it's not as impactful as some of the other approvals, emergency approvals, but they're all being approved under that standard. The efficacy data doesn't have to be as high. The standard is on emergency use authorizations is that it does more benefit than harm.
So how do you know it's already getting approved?
Well, they're not going to, just from everything I've heard, they're not going to not approve it.
Wow. Just pause with me here for a moment and just take this in. I just can't believe this. The FDA is planning on mandating this unsafe and experimental vaccine on your children as young as 6 months old. That's a baby, for God's sake. I mean, you have got to be kidding me. The madness has to stop. How long before they start to say that in order to even give birth to a child that the baby must have already been vaccinated? How long? How far are you willing to let them go? It might sound crazy now, but so did all of this a year ago, but now look where we are. Just look at former president and CEO of Planned Parenthood, affiliates of California, Crystal Strait, who is now pushing for forced COVID-19 child vaccinations, stating that, quote, the firestorm is here, and that this is ground warfare that the anti-vax extremists are bringing, and I think we now need to be able to match it, end quote. So again, I'm going to ask, what does that mean? What is she pushing for? If you ask me, ladies and gentlemen, it sounds like war. But it's not just her. If you are unvaccinated, 55% of Democrat voters want to fine you, 59% want to confine you to your home, 48% want to imprison you for questioning the vaccine's efficacy, 45% want to put you in camps. God only knows what that means, but I think we do know what that means. 46% want you to be digitally tracked like this is communist China. And 29%, now get this, parents, again, this will make your blood boil. 29% went as far to say that they want to take away your children. That's today's Democrat Party. That's today's society. Remember that. So what are they pushing for? What's their point? And if it is what I unfortunately think it is, then very dark days lie ahead for our country. And I hope and pray that that's not the case. But we're going to talk about that at a later date. The article on Planned Parenthood's maniac's thoughts, because that's what she is, and I'm going to call it that way, a maniac. Her thoughts on the unvax went on to say that, quote, campaign leaders of Crystal Strait's Project US campaign are organizing students, parents, and pro-vaccine activists to counter anti-vaccination demonstrators in counties across California and to debunk what they call misinformation. We know they always love to label it that, right? Propaganda. And to debunk misinformation while giving state lawmakers political cover to enact tougher laws, end quote. Now, hear that last part again. To enact tougher laws. What does that sound a lot like? That should sound dangerously familiar to the rhetoric and behavior of Canadian Prime Minister Justin Tyrant Trudeau, who just declared a public emergency in Canada and is now killing people in the streets. The lady was just trampled by a horse. He's now arresting the so-called dangerous citizens attending the trucker protests. Hint, hint, folks. The Biden administration will be no different when we do the same thing here in the U.S., and I believe Nancy Pelosi has already done an excellent job of proving that with her sham January 6th committee. And by the way, these protesters in Canada have been entirely peaceful. So I can't help but think that the only reason they're being referred to as dangerous is because they are dangerous to Justin Trudeau's tyrannical rule, and any hopes that he may have of ever being reelected. Again, keep that in mind for all of us here in the good old US of A. But my point here is this. The FDA, Crystal Strait with baby genocide Planned Parenthood, and Tyrant Trudeau are all pushing for something and promising to mandate it, even if that means it's going against your will. All in the name of protecting the so-called public's health, public betterment, the public good. Never mind the fact that now it would appear that the majority of the public do not want anything to do with it, this vaccine. People around the world, we want our lives back. We want our jobs back. We want our children's minds back who are being indoctrinated in our schools. And yes, folks, we want our freedom and liberty back, and we'll be damned if we cannot have it. It is time to remind these people whose country this is, and I know for a fact that you all watching right now are with me on that. Moving forward with today's show, let's ask some very fundamental questions on this topic. Why would anyone do this? Why mandate? Why terrorize your people and go against their will and strip them of their God-given freedoms? Well, as we have seen time and time again, those questions are answered with one very specific word: money. And this time, there is a lot of it. Here's the FDA's own admission of that fact right here on video again. Take a look.
Incentive for Pfizer and the drug companies to promote additional vaccinations.
Like how much money do they get?
Well, I mean, it'll be a recurring fountain of revenue. It might not be that much initially, but it'll be recurring if they can get every person required at an annual vaccine. That is a recurring return of money going into their company.
Okay, so like if they mandate it for these toddlers, then it's guaranteed income.
Right, at some level.
So do you think that's part of the reason why?
Well, I don't think that's the reason, but that's obviously one of the benefits.
Right.
They clearly want it also for that reason. A long time ago, Congress approved user fees for FDA. Basically, we charge the industry millions of dollars in order to hire more drug reviewers and vaccine reviewers, which will speed up the approval process so they make more money. Like our budget's like, it's like $5.5 billion.
Wait, $5.5 billion for what?
FDA's budget. There's almost $1 billion a year going into FDA's budget from the people we regulate.
What do you mean, the people? Right.
Well, the drug companies, the food companies, the vaccine companies.
So
they pay us hundreds of millions of dollars a year to hire and keep the reviewers to approve their product.
So there you have it. No end in sight, no limits to the funds, what the FDA has now described as a fountain of funding. So I did some digging, and I have some facts for you, America. This is information that the mainstream media does not want you to hear, even though you have every right to know it and deserve to hear it. So get this is going to blow your mind. About 45% of the FDA's budget, which is over $2.5 billion, comes from industry user fees. And by industry user fees, I'm referring to the pharmaceutical companies. Because what could possibly go wrong with that, am I right? The other 55% of the FDA's funding, or $3.2 billion, comes from federal funding, meaning U.S. taxpayer funding, our taxpayer dollars. And all of this information is according to a congressional study that was done regarding a fact sheet that was released by the FDA for just their 2020 funding report. Nothing else, just 2020. Those are some pretty big numbers for just 1 year. But the study continued, saying that for regulatory activities involving human drugs, which account for a third of the FDA's total budget, 65%, or about $656 million, is funded by industry user fees. Again, the industry being the pharmaceutical companies, right? For biopharmaceutical products, which includes vaccines and represents 7% of the FDA's total budget, industry fees pay for about 40%, or around $337 million of that. Now here's the catch. That means that between 2017 and 2021, big pharma-based funding for the FDA increased over 42%. Well, holy crap. I guess it really is a fountain of funding. You add that to over $10 trillion of coronavirus government spending bills, and you've got profits plenty. It would certainly appear now that while millions of small businesses were destroyed due to tyrannical lockdown orders, the federal government, the medical bureaucracies, and the pharmaceutical companies sat back and watched business boom for them, all at the expense of hundreds of thousands of lives and the disappearance of an ancient practice called morals. Now the concerned citizen will ask, how long will this go on? And how far are they willing to go? And to that, my fellow citizens, my answer is quite simple, and history proves it so. They are willing to go as far as you are willing to let them. You see, this always ends in just one of two ways. Either when we say that we have had enough of them, or when they say that they have had enough of us. Either when the well of funding runs dry, which it now has become quite apparent that it likely never will, so long as the perpetual cycle of debt goes round, where the Federal Reserve prints the money, the government spends it, and we, the people, are left to pay both the principal and the interest through something we once revolted over called unfair taxation. Or, however, it will end when you and I say that we have had enough. That we are at our wits' end with the tyranny, the corruption, and the frivolous spending of our funds that go to policies that we do not support and put our sacred freedoms in chains. Now, the first path is one that we all know quite too well, unfortunately. We've been going full speed ahead down that road for many years now. generations, in fact. It's familiar to us, and that is why it is so dangerous. It's the road away from freedom and liberty and towards security and slavery. The road to serfdom. The road to the guaranteed cataclysmic and tragic end of the greatest country known to man, the United States of America. The latter road, however, comes with no guarantees. I cannot guarantee you that if we choose this road, the road rarely traveled, and resist this tyranny, that we will win. I cannot do that, but I really sincerely wish with all of me that I could. But one thing that I can promise, however, is that the odds of our freedom's survival and the continuation of our country's liberty on this path, those odds are far greater than on the first. But as I sit here and I reflect on the state of our glorious Union, I am shocked that this is the America that we have come to live in today. What country is this where men may not live free? Where a totalitarian and abusive government rule over the hearts of free men and women, dictating to them what they may or may not do, and what the heavy hand of government will force upon them. And I always come back to this final and very simple, fundamental question. How? How did we get here? And why? And what are we willing to do to stop it? They're coming for us, and you need to know that. They're coming for your parents. They're coming for you and I. They're coming for our friends, our family, our children, and now they're coming for 6-month-old babies. Their tyranny knows no bounds anymore, no limits, because while they took more, we gave more. So what must be done, you may ask? You. That's right. You. You must get involved. You must sacrifice. Your country is depending on you. You and I. Your children are depending on you as well. And their children too. And I'll leave you with this final point. To quote a courageous man that came before me, whom I do admire greatly. He said, quote, "You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope for man on earth. Or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness. If we fail, at least let our children and our children's children say of us, we justified our brief moment here. We did all that could be done." Those are the words of President and American hero Ronald Reagan. So, my fellow Americans, my fellow countrymen, heed this warning and share this information for all to hear, for all to see, and for all to know, because the sake of our country and our future generations of Americans to come are depending on us. So let's, for their honor, for their liberty, for those to come, let's get it done. As always, I'm Skylar the Patriot, and until next time, always remember, and don't you dare forget it, it's we, the people.